Hey, welcome. It's Thursday night, Born Political. I always say that I'm excited, but I'm truly blessed and excited, happy to have a candidate that I'm going to have a chance to vote for. I haven't, I do interview a lot of different people, and we're only 3 weeks away. But hopefully my next senator is sitting next to me. Farouk Rajab has been on the show previously, and we mostly talked about him, his family, and that's where really I think people that watch the show that I came up to after just were really impressed by you, and they were really happy to meet you, even though it was through camera. And luckily, if you've been around town or in the 18th district anywhere, you've been seeing him around. Although he works full time and he has, I don't know how he's doing it all, he's still managing to run for the 18th, which is no small feat. It's a humongous district with a lot of different folks involved. And we're not going to talk about Farouk as much today. Some of his life might come up. But we're going to talk about some policies, some things that he's looking to change or do, maybe some current events that are happening. He is the Board of Education president in Stonington. And we'll talk to him about a little bit of everything and see what comes up. So thank you guys for listening, and thank you for being on the show tonight. Farouk, how are you, and how's the campaign going?
First of all, thank you, Joe. And it's always a pleasure to be with you. And, people say these words, but I really love being with you because you are such a positive energy and a positive human. I've watched your last Born Political show because, I actually woke up one night after you taped it at 5 o'clock in the morning because this cannot stop. And I sometimes go to YouTube when I can't sleep, try to help me kind of like decompress and not think of the million things in my head and watch soccer. And because I subscribe to your channel, your episode came up and I watched it, and I'm so thankful for your friendship and your support, and I'm so thankful for the work you do in our community. It's very appreciated.
Well, it means a lot coming from you. And again, my wife, she's really fond of you too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, she just appreciates your thought process, and thought process we can get right down to comes to how you're going to vote on things. And I think a lot of people that know you understand that it's, they don't know what's going to come up. Yeah. We had COVID situation happen. We had a lot of different things happen in the last few years of really tight budgets, and now we have surpluses. But what it's always going to come down to is what's your North Star, what's your driving force, and how would you vote on something.
Yeah.
And I think what you've proven on the Board of Education, and I saw some statements you made about what's happening locally. Yeah. We have a situation with the flag. Everything just comes from you very steady and always with the right, in my opinion, the right message. And I think whenever you're forced to take a vote, and there's going to be some tough votes, it's going to be your North Star, your family, your community.
It is. It always will be. And no matter what, I always say, good luck to the Democrats when I'm coming up there because we're not going to agree on everything. We're not going to agree on everything with the Republicans, because what I'll do is I'll do what is important for the 18th, what is important for my family, what is important for my community, regardless of the party affiliation. Really, yeah. That's my true Farouk, and I'll say true to myself, yeah. Joe. I am a Democrat and I'm a proud Democrat, but if it's something that's not good for what I believe in my heart of heart is not good for my community, I'm not going to vote for it. And what I believe is good for the community, I'll vote for it.
And it's going to let you sleep easier. I can tell you in advance already. That's how I practice doing politics. I just, I really had to, sometimes I call my wife shaken.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, and this is by no means to try to scare you, because I think being on the Board of Education, especially in the climate we're in now, that there are votes that you take and people are paying attention. And they do see you on social media and call out. So just talking about your Board of Education job, I know there was a situation in Stonington, yeah, where a pride flag was displayed in the classroom, mm-hmm, or somewhere, and another parent came and asked to remove it. I read your statement, and I share your opinion. But what was your, what's your take on it, and how do you think
first of all, it falls under the umbrella of the superintendent of schools, right? Yeah. In dealing with a parent concern. Every parent has the right to be heard, right? Yeah. Every person has the right to be heard. regardless of what they believe, how they feel about something, how they feel about the world, the universe, their political affiliation. They have the right to be heard. And a parent came to the superintendent of schools, one parent, and a second parent came to her, and she wanted to look into their concern, right? And she asked, collaboratively with the teacher and with the union, to say, she said, listen, until I can understand, because the parent made assertions, claims, and said, you're violating this policy and that policy. She really wanted to find out, true from fiction, what is going on. She worked with the teacher, with all love. She didn't go around and take flags down, right? She worked with that teacher, with the union, said, hey, can we remove this flag from this class until we understand really, what the parent concern is, how does it tie into a board policy? Because the Board of Education sets policies and backs off. We don't tell the superintendent every day, you can do this, you cannot do that. That's not how it works, right? And she heard that parent, she listened to that parent, and she acted on it. Now, there was an email, and some people start making assumption that all pride flags are removed. There are pride flags in Stonington Public Schools today.
Okay, it's
right?
was one class.
It wasn't one. It was 6 classes because
okay.
Two parents, multiple classes. Some of these pride flags were given to the teachers by the students, actually.
Okay.
They're signs of acceptance, right? They're not political statements. That's Farouk, Rajab, personal opinion, right? And hopefully it'll be the Board of Ed. But when it came to the Board of Ed in our meeting, as an issue, as a concern, and remember, outside of the meeting of the Board of Ed, we're public citizens.
Yes.
We're not the Board of Ed. We're the Board of Ed when we're meeting all together.
And you're one of a
I'm one of
member.
7.
Yes.
Right? I am the link between the superintendent and the board. I am, the voice that kind of like tried to get us somewhere together in unity. And I need to, I need the community to understand that there's a way, there's a process to how these things happen. And that parent has had the right.
He does.
And I continue to believe that that parent had the right to question us.
And I think
question.
we are in a time where I think it's a dividing statement when someone goes in and says, I think this is a political, or I don't want my kid to be taught this way. Or
right.
And again, the parents do have the right. And I just hope, because I don't think we get anywhere by yelling at each other. And I know you believe it because I see you practice it every time you speak. But I really think that I just hope that people can put themselves in the shoes of the young men and women that walk into a world that doesn't look like them.
Yeah.
A lot of what normal people say, normal values and normal love relationships, and what seems normal to us. And we talked off air, and I said nothing easier than a heterosexual man in high school. We have a pretty good time. I went to high school. I really didn't have many worries, but I also went to school with some kids that had thoughts that weren't the norm in our time. And I think, if we just open up the door to the folks and accept, we talk about mental health. I think it was in the paper that LGBTQ kids are 5 times more likely to try to attempt and be successful committing suicide.
Yeah.
And then that goes right into drug use and abuse, and that's something that my wife work on. Yeah. My wife and I work with young kids, and we see the damage that's done when kids do drugs at an early age because they have this thing festering inside of them. And if that flag that they gave to a teacher means that there's some kind of connection, I mean, I don't want to yell and scream that across to people. I just hope that people can put those shoes on for 1 minute and imagine it was their kid.
Yeah.
And I think if you can do that, I think sometimes that lets you understand easier.
I hope really that all parents feel and think the same way you and I do. And it's not easy to be different, right? It's not easy to be different. It's not easy to be with different ethnicity. It's not easy to be with a different
accent or
all the above, different name even.
Yeah.
And I've called today the Board of Education for a special meeting. The superintendent had clarified, had meetings with the teachers union, with reps from the Board of Education. I wasn't there in that meeting because it's a meeting that the union called for to discuss, based on their agreement with us. And she made a recommendation. It's public information. There's a Board of Ed special meeting. And the reason I didn't want to wait, and I called the Board of Ed special meeting for this coming Tuesday, is that we're committed to the community, we're committed to these children, and to the Stonington Public School teachers, workers, administrators who work hard to teach those kids in a very loving environment. Every kid, I mean. Yeah. In a very loving environment. So, everything is online, everything is public information. We are a board of 7. We are meeting to clarify a policy that's in place. Does it include, does it not include, is the pride flag a political statement or is not a political statement? And the pride flag is a sign of inclusion. It's not a political statement. So just let's the community rest assured that we're working around the clock. I've received a lot of emails.
I know you have. Sure. On a few different fronts, probably.
On a few
now
different
that you're
fronts,
running for
and I've received a lot of punches. I would call them in the last few days regarding this issue, and I accept them as in my capacity as a volunteer chair of the Board of Ed.
Yes.
But I love it, and I would do it again and again. And it's just that I do things thoughtfully. I try to think about every move, about every step. I don't overdraw things. I try to take quick action, quick decision, but it has to be a board, and it has to be a board meeting in public.
And I think a lot of people don't understand that. And when I hear people get into politics for the first time and say, "Well, I'm a business person," and in business, we know you know very well that if something's not working out, you can just listen to the manager and we can change direction. It's not how it happens in politics. You're a member of a board, and if you get elected senator, you still have to hammer it out with 35 other individuals that may have a far different opinion than you. And speaking as a Democrat, I've been very frustrated because, the last few years, I'd say the last 2 decades, where police officers and unions were reliably Democratic voters, had a lot to do with their pensions and retirements. There's something that happened in the 80s in 90s where police and their families felt like we were walking away from them a little bit. We talked about this off air, the defund the police slogan. Couldn't have been written. It must have been written by competitors of the Democrats. It's not only is it not a good slogan, just to make sense to say it. And I think a lot of people are running on this law and order that Democrats don't like it. And when I talk to you and hear your pragmatic way of understanding that, get everyone's opinion in, that's what we've done as Democrats. And I stick up for Democrats because the police that say we don't love them, I say go to any other state that's a red state. Yeah. And look at the pay and benefits, because I think we show our love, but by voting for them. And I saw your competitor that actually she was at a police function, and was mentioning the police accountability bill and how they're going to fight it, and that's been a very good, effective tool against Democrats there. But if you look at the shooting that just happened in Bristol, and my thoughts are with these families and these officers and the job they did. But a lot of the stuff that happened in police accountability bill, the video, making sure there's transparency, a lot of that went to work in this shooting. And we know a lot more about the shooting than we may have known before that bill. But the good senator didn't remind folks, because there were also two other entities. There was the York Correctional Center, and there were the state police that got awards. Both Republicans, Greg Howard and her, that were at that event, they handed out citations. They voted against those people's raises, and I just hope that law enforcement understands the Democrats have not run away from them. And listening to you, I mean, I know you're going to get these, the law enforcement question. Are you for crime? And they're kind of boxing us in, but obviously you're not.
I'm not for crime. I'm for accountability. Yeah. And I wish our show is here for hours because we can sit and
We
talk, you
could.
and I, forever. But
These are big issues we're talking
there
about.
are big issues, and they're important issues. But I assure you, I am for supporting our police officers, for our brothers and sisters in blue. I know many of my neighbors in Stonington know me and know better, and there are many police officers in my neighborhood where I live, and state level, and on a town level, and many other town levels where they live in my neighborhood, and I know many of them are supporting me. I know many of them supported me publicly and privately because they know where I stand on my support to law and order.
Yeah.
And accountability when it comes to the people who are committing crime is important to me. I don't know if I shared with you, Joe, but my middle son car was stolen 3 weeks ago. And in a matter of a second, because somebody decided to take a joyride or steal the car for whatever reason, that they stole his car. He was at the gym. He went to exercise. They took his keys from the locker. He didn't lock his locker. Went out. He went to take his jacket, and it wasn't there. He goes out, no car, no wallet, no ID, no credit cards, no reading glasses. He had to go find somebody so he can call me. I had to Venmo him $200 just to can survive until he can get his credit cards back. He had to go lease a new car that he didn't need to lease. He had to.
My goodness.
I mean, it was really messy for him.
Yep.
And I sit there and I go, how is that? There has to be an accountability, and my commitment to the people of the 18th that I'll raise the awareness of what these crimes do to our families and to our community, because I feel it. I feel it as Farouk. I feel it as a community. And I will always support policing, proper policing, right policing. When I first decided to run for the 18th, my first call was actually to the police chief. And I said, hey, I decided to run, and I would like to come and sit down with you and hear from you, what do the police need? Sat there, talked to him, and he said, you know what, I'd like to send you to another chief of police so you can have a different perspective.
Yep.
I went there, and those chiefs of police know me, and we sat, we talked about police accountability bill, and I'll tell you, both of them said that police accountability bill had things that were really good for the police, and they really wanted them, and it really helped them do their job. And they also said that there are other things in the bill that could have been thought out differently. They could have worked on like changing the language. And I made a commitment to them. I said, would you sit and talk through it again with me after I earned the seat in the 18th? And that's the commitment they gave me, that we're going to sit down and talk again through this. But I'm committed to making it better.
Yep.
They want many of the things.
Worked. I mean, and me being up there, I can tell you for sure that I was one of 5 Democrats that voted against it.
Yeah.
And I think when they look at a politician, and if you get elected, or even as a Board of Education, people have this wrong impression that people get involved so they can have this power. I felt powerless a lot of times. You walk into a room, and you'll feel that if you become a senator, and I hope you do. You walk into the room, there's 35 people that are fighting for the same pot of money, that have different ideas, and you don't feel it's always a negotiation.
It is, yeah.
And if you again, I'm not saying there aren't any people that get elected and strictly do it for power, because I think there are those people. But most of the people that I met go up there, it's because they were trying to make the community better, Democrat or Republican. Even though we may have vastly different ways on how to get there, I think they do go up with good intentions, most people. So a lot of people.
And you probably, and I never really think a lot about the party affiliation, to be honest with you, Joe, as much as I thank our current senator for her service. I know it's not easy.
Yeah.
But the only reason I'm fighting for the seat, and I want to win the seat, because we're not seeing results here in southeastern Connecticut. We're not seeing results in eastern Connecticut. We're not seeing results in Sterling. It's talk is easy, to prove it is hard, right? And there's we on the ground are feeling it. There are no results of that representation, and we need. I know it's hard because I led the entire hospitality industry through COVID in Rhode Island, and it was a heavy lift. It was hard to negotiate with these politicians, and it was hard to get help for the restaurants and hotels in the state. But we did it. We did it through, common sense conversation, through negotiation, through give and take. What can we do as an industry so we can get to go alcohol, or we can get, we led the way. And actually, Connecticut Restaurant Association, Connecticut Lodging Association kind of emulated and copied many of the things we did on Rhode Island to kind of like help the industry here. And we led the fight and we led the way. And I get how hard it is when you're up there trying to negotiate, and I know many of my Connecticut friends saw me go and give testimonies in Rhode Island and in Connecticut when I was the chairman of the Connecticut Lodging Association. It's not easy up in Hartford. I know what I signed up for a job. The job I'm signing up for is not easy, but I'm not doing it for the title, I'm doing it because I know I can do better.
Yep. And I saw when you had the forum. You guys didn't do a debate, but there was a forum, and it was very crowded. I
wish you would do a debate.
Yeah, I think a debate would have been more natural for you to go back and forth and talk. Again, I think she didn't. I don't think your competitor wanted to do a debate for whatever reason, but I watched it, and I think one of the questions that weighs on everyone's mind. I talked about the police because that's one of the things that Democrats get hit on a lot, and now we're actually dealing with an economy that really does not bode very well for most working people. And there's a lot of different things that we can do locally here, but I keep hearing, the mantra is that instead of us using the surpluses to pay down debt that we have, that we should have just sent checks back to people for $200 or $300 or $400. I voted for the budget because it did pay down debt. We took a surplus, and you know what? When you tell people that you're doing good, but you have a $60 billion unfinanced liability or underfunded liability, you have a $4 million surplus, billion dollar surplus, but it's not really a surplus. If you owe $100,000 on your credit cards and you walked into $10,000, the regular guy working at home with a finance and a budget would say, you know what, let's take the $10,000 and put it on that credit card and let's work this thing down. And that's what we've done at the state. And I think you're going to have that opportunity again to do it. And a lot of people talk about just, oh no, we'll just cut all these taxes. And cutting taxes sounds good, but that's what just happened in Britain. And because she was going to give everybody this huge tax break. And they got degraded. Britain said, well, if you do that, you're not going to be able to pay debts and finance the government. And we hate the word taxes. Everyone hates it, but they're essential. So it's how we fund our schools and everything else.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I was asked this morning actually about that specific issue about debt payment, about taxation. I'm a school of thought of eliminating the gas tax as number one. We don't need gas tax. It should go away. We should work towards eliminating the car tax in general. And then somebody said to me in an interview this morning, would you get rid of the income tax? And I said, well, wait a second, because we need taxes, right? We need taxes, it's an aspiration, but it's also not as simple as they try to make it sound. Like, let's eliminate all taxes, and what do we do?
Yeah.
Like, what do we do? A smaller government, a more nimble government. I'm a business guy, Joe, and I'll tell you this: I don't have credit card debt.
Yep.
I don't have car debt. I drive a car that has 260,000 miles on it, and I'm going to keep driving it into the ground. And I have very small mortgage. It hurt me when my son went to college because the college admission office said, you don't have that much debt. I go, what does that mean? He goes, you're going to pay more for college tuition. So, but I'll take you 20 years ago. I had to make a choice between paying my electric bill or putting food on the table.
Yes.
So there are ways to help Connecticut families through the increased skyrocketing utility cost. And that could happen in many ways. We could help them convert to a solar power and for electricity in their home. We could help them. We could help in many ways as a state, as a government, to help that those dollars that come out of our pocket in different ways other than income tax or other than, but speaking of my credit card debt that I don't have, but that's really what we have in pension. It's a
That's
credit
what it
card.
is. It's
And you pay the minimum, you're gonna have a problem.
Yeah.
That's what they teach you in economics.
I think walking into the legislature, the burden of debt, because I don't think you could wrap your head around it until you've been up there. I mean, we all hear the numbers, but when you're really looking at your budget and understanding the fact that legislatures before us and governors, Democrat, Republican, didn't matter, they made decisions not to pay as they went. And we've always said that one day our kids are going to pay. Well, I think we're the kids.
We're the kids.
Because I'm 51 years old, but when you're walking in to a situation where you find yourself in that kind of debt, for me, it was this relief saying that, wow, there's this extra money. And where a lot of people said, give it back. Joe, what are you doing? It's our money. It is your money, but it's also your debt. Whether you like the debt or not, whether you incurred the debt or not, when you're a citizen of Connecticut, or if you're a citizen of the country, you have this national debt that you're a part of.
Yeah.
And we're responsible enough that we know that we have to pay. And being local and budgeting local, that you don't want to go try to borrow money to build a new school, and your debt ratio is like this because you're going to pay more for the school than a town that's been responsible.
Yeah, and I always say I'm a Yankee because I've been living here for so long, so I became really, really good with the numbers. But they speak of experience. I actually have more experience than anybody in that office or will be in that office in how to manage finances and how to manage. I managed $100 million budgets on a smaller scale on a small business, and then to take that, because I hear you, like when you say, well, until you look at those numbers, until I started looking at $100 million budget and start saying, well, wait a second, like you can't do this and you can't do that, and you can't spend on this, but you have to spend on that. We always try to manage, and the bank always owed the money. We always owed money to that bank. All these beautiful hotels and beautiful buildings around the country are financed by banks, by the way. Very few of them are fully paid. So you have to manage that debt payment, controlling your expenses, and always increasing your revenue.
And becoming a politician, I think I'm glad that you did something locally. Because whenever I hear someone say that all of it is business, it is two different beasts.
Two different.
It's, the government is people business. And when people say the government is so expensive, it's because people are expensive. Yeah. And it's not easy. We're down to 1 minute.
Really?
Yes.
Why the time always flies and we can talk much more.
Maybe the show should have been an hour show, but I do want to thank our in-studio for keeping us in line and on check all the time. I just got to say that we have an election coming up, and I couldn't be more excited to have all my support behind Farouk. I know his competitor. I've worked with her, and she has been great for the community. We've gotten along. We've voted on some things together. It always comes back to me to the bottom line and what you're going to support. And I know Farouk's going to be someone that will chip away at that budget and work numbers down, but he's going to support a budget and support things that come back to our community. So Farouk, I just want to thank you for coming on. We probably only got like 30 seconds, so I don't know if you want to say anything to finish it off, but.
I just want to ask you to please to come out and vote November 8th. Vote for me, and I'm committed to this community. I'm committed to you, and I'll prove that I'm the right candidate for the job, and I'll do the job to the best of my ability.
All right, guys, that's another Born Political. Thursday night is over. The fastest half hour in TV. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.